All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our meeting tonight. My name is Lauren Wallachy, and I'm a Public Information Officer with Caltrans. Tonight we're going to be going over 2 pavement rehabilitation projects, as well as the Pacific Coast Highway Draft Master Plan Feasibility Study. We have a lot of information to get through tonight, and so we appreciate you coming here and taking the time to listen to both presentations. There will also be an opportunity for question and answers after each of the presentations, and we ask that you ask your questions specifically about the presentation that has been presented. You can also fill out a comment card, which you can find right outside, and there is also information on that comment card, a QR code that will lead you to our project website, as well as a website for the Pacific Coast Master Plan as well. Now I'd like to go ahead and introduce my colleague, Katie Masick.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, as she said, my name is Katie. I'm also a Caltrans Public Information Officer. So as she also mentioned, there's a lot to get through tonight, so I'm just going to run through what that's going to look like here. So first, we're going to have the project team share information about 2 pavement rehabilitation projects on PCH. After those presentations, we will do a Q&A specifically for questions on the pavement rehabilitation projects for the first Q&A. And then we will do the draft PCH Master Plan Feasibility Study presentation, and there will be time for Q&A after that, specifically for the master plan. That's a lot to get through, so if for any reason you need to leave early tonight, please leave your comments or questions on one of those comment cards that Lauren mentioned, and we will get in touch with you if we need to answer a question. Otherwise, we will just gladly accept your feedback. And then I just quickly want to go over, can you guys all see that? Yeah, okay. The PCH corridor project that Caltrans is currently working on. So we have multiple projects devoted to improving safety on Pacific Coast Highway. In the short term right now, Caltrans is wrapping up director's orders projects to address immediate safety items. These started in January 2024, and they should be wrapping up this spring. So those include repainting crosswalks, painting speed limits on the pavement, and installing or replacing speed limit and curb warning signs, among other improvements.
And then moving on to the midterm, again, we have 2 pavement rehabilitation projects that we'll be going over tonight. One section is going to be from south of Cross Creek Road to the Ventura County line, and that one is going to get started in about 2026. And then the kind of second section is going to be from McClure Tunnel to south of Cross Creek Road, and that construction will get started in around 2027. And then moving on to the long term, we have our team here tonight to present about the master plan. And now I'd like to have the rest of the project team go ahead and introduce themselves, and we'll go ahead and start with Janice.
Hi, good evening. My name is Janice Liu. I am the project manager for the 2 midterm pavement rehab projects.
Refugio Dominguez, I'm the design manager of the 2 midterm projects.
Good afternoon, or good evening. Caltrans Transportation Safety, Osama-san.
Good evening, everyone. Lee Haber, Caltrans District 7 Chief Safety Officer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Arthur Edsport. I'm the Deputy District Director for Caltrans District 7 Planning and Local Assistance.
Ryan Snyder, Planning Division, District 7.
All right, thank you. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into our presentation on the pavement rehabilitation projects.
Hi, so we have 2 midterm projects, and they're actually one next to each other. We have North Salmon and South Salmon. And first, we're going to present the North Salmon. It's from south of Cross Creek to Ventura County line. So the first salmon is all in city of Malibu, and it's from post mile 46.9 to 62.9. It's a good 60-mile stretch. And again, it's from Cross Creek Road to Ventura County line. And you can see that is the blueprint of the project. The purpose of the project is to fix the pavement. The goal is to extend the surface life of the roadway, improve the ride quality, and that will minimize the maintenance needs, and which will minimize the maintenance worker exposure. We understand safety is a major concern in this PCH, so we also incorporate upgrading complete street features and upgrading the safety features. Next, I'm going to turn it over to our design engineer to
Yes, I would like to go over the proposed scope of work. As you can see on the exhibits. Pavement rehabilitation, we're gonna coat plane and overlay with rubberized hot mix asphalt. That's the main purpose of the project, the overlay. Then we go to complete street elements. We're gonna upgrade and add new ADA curb ramps, approximately 20 of them. And we're gonna add new sidewalks. If I can remember correctly, it's around 6 new sidewalks that do not exist, so we will be adding that. We're gonna enhance crosswalk striping. The next is audible pedestrian signals, countdown pedestrian signals, and bicycle detection. And we're gonna add class 2 bike lanes at 3 segments. Next slide. Safety items. We're gonna upgrade the guardrail system, the existing MBGRs. We're gonna install quick curves for traffic channelization. We're gonna add 20 new lights throughout the segment. We're gonna replace and install new roadway signs within the project limits. We're gonna make longer the left turn pocket from northbound PCH to southbound Heather Cliff Road. Then we're also gonna lengthen the northbound left turn pocket from northbound PCH to southbound Malibu Cove Colony Drive. And we're gonna realign the intersection where southbound PCH meets Malibu Road from a skew to a T intersection. And the last below is we're gonna realign the intersection at Civic Center Drive to northbound PCH, same thing from a skew to a 90-degree intersection. Next slide. Design challenges regarding the bike lanes. Widening may require higher environmental document process, so we're not doing widening on this project, so that's why the bike lane is limited. Right-of-way constraints, we have a lot of right-of-way constraints. We don't have space to add bike lanes at some locations because we don't own the right-of-way. We have parking constraints. We cannot remove parking. And roadway lane width constraints. The lane widths have to be a certain width. We cannot take away lanes or reduce them further than the standard. Multiple segments regarding the class 2 bike lanes. We're gonna be adding bike lanes and we're gonna reduce the lanes to 11 foot, from 12 to 11. And the race median at many locations throughout this segment, from 12 foot to a 2 foot race median. That will add space so we can have additional bike lanes. Class 2 bike lane throughout this project, going northbound is gonna be 22 segments going northbound. Coming southbound, 22 segments, 22 pieces of bike lanes. And if we look at the exhibit, going northbound is like 7.7 miles. Coming southbound, 7.1 miles. We cannot have continuous, as I'm gonna explain later. It will be nice, but so we have into segments, the bike lanes, which is 22 in either direction. Class 2 bike lane cross section, this is a typical section.
What is a Class 2 bike lane?
Class 2 bike lane is a bike lane by itself, a stripe by itself, next to the shoulder.
Stripe on the highway.
Yes, on the highway, yes. So it's a lane for bike lanes.
Not a protected lane. Not a protected lane, that's a problem.
It's a lane for bicycles, protected. It's its own lane.
How's it protected?
There will be time for questions during the Q&A if you just want
Yes.
to
I
ask
was
those.
just,
Thank
you
you.
kept saying a Class 2 bike
I
lane.
understand.
Yeah.
I'm glad we clarified. We'll do questions at the end. Thank you.
Yes. And this is a typical section of a class 2 bike lane. And northbound PCH, this is within the project limits from El Mat. It's not throughout the project limits, it's from El Matador all the way to Sierra Road. We're gonna have a bike lane in both directions, as you can see, a bike lane by itself, striped in northbound and southbound direction. That's for the bike lane section. Now we can go to the next exhibit. We have new sidewalks. The new sidewalks, as you can see, at 6 different locations. And there are locations where we need sidewalks. We don't have sidewalks. We have a bus stop, no sidewalk. So these sidewalks will have a continuous use for users. 6 new sidewalks throughout these project limits. This is, as I mentioned before, a new T intersection, Civic Center Way, going northbound to PCH From Askew, it will be a T, a 90-degree intersection, as shown on this exhibit. Next exhibit, this is a new sidewalk along with a T intersection at Malibu, going southbound, which is on the north side of, or the upside of the exhibit. And on the lower side, we're also adding a sidewalk from Cross Creek all the way to Webway. So we're adding a sidewalk on both directions, southbound and northbound, and we're adding that intersection. Next slide. New sidewalk from Malibu Canyon Road to John Tyler. Right now it's just a grass area, so we're gonna have a continuous sidewalk from curb ramp to the other curb ramp. Next, a new sidewalk south of Coral Canyon in the southbound direction. The whole stretch, as you can see on the exhibit. Next, and then we're also gonna have a new sidewalk going northbound on PCH. We have a bus stop at Heather Cliff, but from the bus stop to the crosswalk, it's a dirt area. We're gonna add a sidewalk, so there's a connection. Also, we're gonna add a sidewalk at Bush Drive. There's a bus stop. There's no sidewalk. We're gonna add a sidewalk there. Now regarding the project schedule.
Thank you, Frigio. So project schedule, right now this project is currently in design phase. It started back in 2022. We are targeting to complete it in this fall, 2025. Construction will start next summer, 2026. It's about 2 years. So we end around summer 2028. So that concludes the north segment. Now I'm gonna go on the south segment, and this is from McClure Tunnel to south of Cross Creek. Project location for this one, again, is on PCH. Post mile is 35.2 to 46.9, so it's about 11.7 post mile. This footprint actually cross over 4 cities from the south end at city of Santa Monica to Los Angeles, then to Topanga community, and lastly to city of Malibu. Similar to the other project, the purpose of the project is to fix the pavement, extend the surface life of the roadway, improve the ride quality, minimize maintenance need and worker exposure. And again, we understand safety is a concern. We are also incorporating and upgrading complete street features and safety features. And I'm going to turn it over to.
Yes, like Janice said, similar to the other segment, we're doing a pavement rehabilitation. We're going to cold plane and overlay with rubberized hot mix asphalt. Second, there are locations where the pavement is damaged, so an overlay will not work. So we're gonna do a complete replace the structural section at those locations, and transit stop improvement. There are 30 bus stops that have asphalt pavement. We're gonna remove the asphalt pavement. We're gonna put white concrete, PCC concrete, to make it more durable. That's at the bus stops, 30 of them. Complete street elements. We're gonna upgrade 22 new ADA curb ramps. We're gonna add new sidewalks and crosswalks at particular locations. We're gonna enhance the crosswalk striping, and same as the other project, audible pedestrian signals, countdown pedestrian signal heads, and bicycle detection. And same as the other project, we're gonna add class 2 bike lanes on this segment also. Regarding safety items, we're gonna upgrade the guardrail system. We're gonna install quick curbs for traffic channelization at 15 locations. We're gonna upgrade the lighting at 2 tunnels, the Roosevelt Tunnel and the Beach Tunnel. We're gonna replace and install new signs throughout the project limits for 12 miles. And we're gonna add CCTV cameras around the Roosevelt Tunnel on the outside for safety. And at a particular location, which is going northbound at the City of Santa Monica parking lot 3 North, we're gonna add a signal, a brand new signal for persons to make a left. New bike lane, crosswalk, and sidewalk. Those are the locations. The sidewalks are in red. 1, 2, 3 locations with 2 locations with sidewalk, crosswalk, 3 locations. And then we're gonna have the bike lanes, 3 locations for bike lanes. Or can we go to the previous one? I just wanna show the 3 locations, one going northbound and 2 locations northbound and southbound, which is close to the beginning of the project. Next slide. This is a typical section of the bike lane from Temescal Canyon Road to Bay Club Drive. We're gonna have a bike lane on both directions, southbound and northbound, throughout this stretch between these two streets. And next slide. Going northbound from Carbon Canyon all the way to Sierra Road, only in the northbound direction we can have a bike lane. This is more in detail of what I mentioned before. New sidewalk crosswalk at this is the address 20356. Sidewalk, we have a bus stop. There is no sidewalk. We're gonna add a sidewalk. Then we're gonna add a crosswalk so persons can cross to the other side. Next slide. At the corner of Topanga Canyon and PCH, a new sidewalk. There is no sidewalk. There used to be, I think, a nursery there, or so we're gonna add a sidewalk. Next one, at Entrada Drive, we're gonna add a crosswalk with a signal for pedestrians, handicapped persons to cross from one side of PCH to the beach side. And this is a new crosswalk. And regarding the project schedule, Janice?
Thank you. So this project, we're currently in project approval and environmental document phase. So we are kind of finalize our scope and also completing our environmental document. We started summer 2022. We're targeting to complete this spring 2025. Then design will start, and we're targeting to complete in winter 2026. Construction will start summer 2027, approximately 2 years, so it will end around summer 2029.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation. We're going to move over to some question and answers shortly. We have a microphone set up over there on the left. So if you do have a question or some feedback, you can go ahead and line up behind the microphone. In case you have future questions after tonight's meeting, we also have an email inbox set up. That's going to be repavepch@dot.ca.gov. And it's up on the screen. So if you do have future questions after tonight's meeting, please reach out to that email.
And just a quick note before we get started, in the interest of time and just to be mindful of everybody's time here tonight, we ask that you keep your questions to 2 minutes and try to limit it to one at a time. If there's time and we get through everybody, you're welcome to come back up and go through again until it's time for our next presentation to start. So just a reminder that this first Q&A is just for these two projects we heard about, the pavement rehabilitation projects, and then we'll have another Q&A for the master plan. So if we don't get through all of your questions tonight, it looks like we will. But if we don't, please reach out to us at repavepch@dot.ca.gov to make sure we get those questions answered. I will let you kick it off. Is that mic on?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Merrill Way. Additions to the sidewalks, PCH, Zumarez, northbound land side, there's no sidewalk there. There's an 18-inch distance between the fog line and the curb. There needs to be a sidewalk there. That might be one of the most dangerous spots on PCH. You can also extend the sidewalk down to Zuma View Place if you want to, and you can run it north to 28711, which is the next driveway. Paradise Cove, south of Paradise Cove. Both of those shoulders need to have about another 3 or 4 feet added to the shoulder for the parking, for the pedestrians, and for the cyclists, which is mobbed during the summertime. If you've ever been there during the summer, it's essential that that be maintained and widened. Also across from Winding Way, the shoulder's eroded. Sometimes people park over there. So that since it's eroded, the cars park out right on the fog line, so all during the summer. Across from Joffrey's also, the shoulder's eroded off that shoulder. And you can fill that in and make sure that people can park away from PCH so that there's room for the pedestrians and the valets getting out of there.
Thank you for your feedback. We appreciate it.
Hi, 26-year Malibu resident, 4th generation Angelino. Just 2 comments on the proposed signal in Santa Monica. at Entrada and the number 3 parking lot. Has anybody even looked at or done a study to see what kind of traffic impact that is going to have during rush hours? That, to me, is an absolute foolish idea to put signals there. Unless they're really smart signals, they stay green 99% of the time. I think that needs a hard look before you make that a final decision. Thank you.
Hi, Michelle Shane. Couple questions. Number one, the stuff you just presented to us, is that funded? Is that approved? Is that stuff that you are definitely doing, or is that projected stuff? And the second one, which is the bigger one, is that you cannot draw a line on a highway and call it a bike lane. I don't care, class whatever, it is insanity to think that that works. And I can defy anyone who has even an inkling of an education to say that that works. So you have to come back with a plan that is actually feasible in the sense that we're not going to be killing people because they're driving on PCH. We can't be a highway and a country road at the same time. We are one or the other. Thank you.
Hi, Kimberly Carr, thejourneyhomeagain.com. The problems
Excuse
here-
me, sorry, we're just gonna answer that first question, if you wouldn't mind waiting just a second, from the other person.
Oh,
Yeah.
Do you want me to come back?
No.
Okay.
To answer your question about the funding, yes, the first project is actually in design right now, so whatever we're saying, we're incorporating it. And then the second project currently is in scope, like we're finalizing the scope, so we should be also going to design for that scope in the next phase.
Go ahead, thank you for waiting.
Okay, I'm used to the city council format. So these problems need to be designed or legislated out of existence. We're talking about speeding, random U-turns, left turns, jaywalking, etc. I echo the bike lane concern. When you're presenting this information, by the way, I'm having a very hard time at landing on where these 20 lights are. And I would love so very much, when you're presenting what you'd like to do, there's a Michelin study out where they have segmented the highway into 10 segments. And if you could please present what you're going to do in each segment, the community can land on that a lot better and the expectations of what might happen. Furthermore, I'm interested in knowing by each of the 10 segments, what are the speed limits? Because it varies and it's a guessing game. It's a mess out there with the speed, and it's a real problem. I'd also like to know exactly where those pinch points are so that everybody can mutually understand this. And parking, it's a problem too. We need to look at this. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, it's it would be nice to have a continuous bike lane, but we don't have the space. The highway itself, it's limited in width, so we cannot have the 2 lanes northbound, 2 lanes southbound, along with the bike lanes. We cannot have it at the same time because that's the width of the road, unless we buy right away outside the state right away. And the purpose of this project is not to buy right away. Also, we need to do an environmental study, further studies, because we cannot excavate, we cannot widen the road. So it's within the footprint of the highway. That's where we're adding the bike lanes. The bike lanes are within the footprint. At intersections, we have a lot of left turn pockets and right turn pockets. So that makes it it's very hard to add a bike lane because there's no space. It's impossible. So that's why it's broken down, and we have bike lane segments, just segments, but it cannot be continuous due to right-of-way constraints, due to the space of the road, the footprint. That's why it cannot be continuous. It would be nice if it could be continuous.
Right,
Can
so that
I
was
answer?
Michael's question, but I asked about the segment, please. Segmenting the PCH
Oh,
for
segmenting.
communication, please.
So in terms of the segmentation, we'll go back and look at the Michelin study that was done and see how they set up their segmentation. I don't want to commit Refugio or the team here because we typically lay our projects out on a set post-mile and stationing system. And so while we're in this process, we need to stay with the segmentation. We typically go from south to north, and I want to see what he has. If there's a way where we can provide you some landmarks and reference points, we'll look to do that. But the Michelin study was done separately, and I don't recall how they did it. I last looked at that study fall of last year, so I don't want to commit, make an agreement to that, and then welch on that agreement with you. So I want to look at this with the team, and we'll come back on that.
Thank you for
Yeah,
acknowledging.
and just to add one thing with what Refugio is talking about, because of the environmental constraints and the environmental document type, we're working to keep everything within the existing paved footprint of the roadway. That's a key thing, right, Refugio, am I correct? So I want to add that point for clarity. I think there's some expectations that we're going to be able to go out there and add feet of pavement and other things that's really challenging. We've been working hard to get the sidewalks in these segments where we placed them. That's been a lift for the team. But within the pavement of the roadway section, that's where we're constrained on a lot of these.
Can I just answer you for 1 sec? Because you answered my question. I was led to believe that the lanes right now are larger than they were. I think they're 12 feet, and now lanes are 9 feet? Something like that?
Yeah, no, we don't have 9-foot lanes. That's either 9 or 10. That's too narrow.
So the standard lane width, the highway design manual defined the standard lane width at 12 feet. We've had a variety of lane widths on PCH. There's some design standards and guidance where we can go with narrower lane widths than 12 feet. While Refugio was talking about 9 feet being too narrow, we do have some segments that are very narrow where we do have, I believe, 9 or 9.5 foot lanes in some segments. So we do have some troublesome areas. Those are the pinch points he's talking about. If my memory's correct, I think we've got some very narrow lane widths down at Las Flores and PCH, which would be in the southern capital preventive maintenance project.
But wouldn't narrowing the lanes also slow down the traffic? So, I mean, slow down the speeding? Add traffic. No, so slow down the speeding?
Well,
because the perception of...
It may, it may not. It depends on the motorist.
Right.
We can narrow to a point. We also have to balance a variety of needs out there.
I just think we're in the 21st century, and you're looking at a solution that's a solution that, you know, is old school. There must be a way to find a happy medium for the motorist and the bicyclist and the pedestrian and the sidewalks.
Michelle, I hear you. I'm probably going to get in trouble with Lauren and stuff if I keep talking with you back and forth this way.
Okay,
so,
sorry.
I'm going to go ahead and let the folks that are queued
Excuse
up at the
me.
microphone go ahead, and I think that Ryan Snyder will be going into the master plan as well with additional features.
Great. Hi everyone, Damien Kevitt with Streets Are For Everyone. Thank you for your presentation. I first just want to say I know that there's a lot of work being put into this, and I do appreciate the work that you're doing. Obviously, the whole purpose of this is to punch holes in this and give additional feedback on points where it could be improved. So I have 3 things to bring up. I'm going to try to go super fast on this. First one is near Carbon Canyon, Rambla Vista. There is a bus stop on both sides of the road. There is no crossing for that bus stop, and there is no sidewalk. The closest crossing is Carbon Canyon, and there's no sidewalk to get to that bus stop, which puts pedestrians having to either cross in the middle of PCH or walk along PCH, which is a deadly activity, as we know. So I want to bring that up. That was a recommendation as part of the 2015 report that was done on pedestrian safety along PCH. I highly recommend addressing that particular intersection there. That's the first one. Second, it's not clear, so this is a question. If you could respond to this, if there are any points left with the current repaving plans where cyclists will be forced into full lanes of traffic. There are currently sections where cyclists, it becomes a quote class 3 bike lane on a 45, 50 mile per hour road, which really means 60, where cyclists are forced into the middle of lanes of traffic. That's obviously not safe. And with the proposed repaving, will there still be points where that will occur? And the last one is AB 10, hold on here, I have it. AB 1014 is currently in the legislature. That would give you the authorization to lower speed limits on PCH and other state highways, I believe by 5 miles per hour. I want to just flag that because if that does get through the governor, which it very likely will because we're working on it, then you will have the ability to drop speed limits in certain sections of PCH. And I would like to make sure that is incorporated so that you can do a repaving 3 years down the road and then you can't drop the speed limits because you didn't think about it now. Those are my 3 points.
I can answer the one regarding the bike lanes merging into a regular traffic lane because there's no space for them. Based on my recollection, I think there is no location. Maybe the minimum is some spot locations where we might have 2 or 3 feet of shoulder, but I don't think there's a location where we don't have a shoulder. So where will a bicycle lane go into the traffic lane? I'll check it again. I'll make sure, but I think there's no area like that. We have a small shoulder. Typical shoulder is 8 feet. I think the minimum maybe there's some locations where it might be a couple of feet, 2 or 3, but there's no place where it's 0. But I will check that out.
I would like to know back on that. That is an important point. Thank you.
Will do. That's for question number 2.
Sir, could you just shoot an email to that repave PCH, or is there a way we can reach you?
Yeah, I'll drop off my card. And Ryan, Marlon, a number of you already
They got you.
my
All right.
data there,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Hi there. I would love some clarity on where you're deciding to keep parking on PCH and take away parking on PCH, because it was unclear to me.
Yes, yeah, we're not proposing of taking parking away and as part of these 2 projects. No, we're gonna keep parking the way it is.
Okay, because keeping parking on PCH is a death sentence. I am unclear why parking will remain. You can't park on a highway. These highways you're saying are not safe for bikers, so therefore they shouldn't be safe to park on the sides of. So let's pick a lane. Are we a highway or a boulevard? Because I don't see that right now. I see that you guys are turning you're putting lipstick on a pig, really. And I appreciate you guys coming here and the hard work, and I know that it's not easy. But really, we need to stop putting Band-Aids on bullet wounds. And I feel like you're throwing us a little bone here, right? Like, summertime parking on PCH, the stopping short in select areas like Paradise Cove and Malibu First Point, it's extremely dangerous, and I don't know why this isn't being included. Do you guys plan on it at some point? Talking about parking on PCH? I would like to talk about parking on PCH, I would like to talk about where parking could go instead of on a state highway. I don't think that we should eliminate people from coming here, but I think that it's a good, right discussion to talk about how people enjoy PCH and Malibu.
We'll be working with removing some parking in the master plan, which we'll show shortly.
Oh, today?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Good evening, thanks for coming. I had a quick question. If you're gonna put any sidewalk or bike lane, if you do not have a physical barrier, people will die, period. So are you incorporating any physical barriers? Like right now, and the other elephant in the room is PCH is a disaster right now when you're driving out from all the way from Topanga to here, all of it. Why aren't you working and getting this work done? Like, can you coordinate with all the efforts right now on the cleaning up of PCH? And instead of waiting from 27 to 29, why can't you get that out there, start doing this work now? And then the third question is commuters in the mornings and in the evenings, and educate people who are going to school, to work. Why can't you have a middle lane that during the hours of 7 and whatever, you're opening it up so it's not just 2 lanes, it's 3 lanes for commuters, because it's such a big issue when, God only knows, 2030 when it opens up again, let's be honest. how are you even considering commuter lanes in the middle lanes? And I think it's really needed. So have you even, I didn't hear it. I don't know. Thank you.
Yes, regarding commuter lanes, if we add a commuter lane, that means we have to use the median, in the middle, either in the morning going this way or the afternoon going the other way. If we do that, then we cannot have bike lanes. For the project from Sierra Road to Ventura County, we're adding like 22 segments, bike lanes, northbound and southbound. If we add, as a concept, if we go with the commuter lane, then there will be no bike lanes. So we have to get rid of. So.
How many people commute versus how many people are going to bike and die? Okay, I'm a biker. I love it. Did the triathlons, but I'm not going out on PCH. People will die. Okay, and people are commuting. Not many people bike unless you have a physical barrier. Every day you're playing Russian roulette out there. So you're now putting bikers, not only you're promoting biking, you're putting them at risk. I pray nobody ends, up dead.
Yeah, for the physical barrier has to be at least 8 feet away from the lane itself. And if we have a shoulder which is less, we cannot have a physical barrier. The standard is to have a physical barrier at least 8 feet away from the travel lane. That's a tough one if we don't have a wide enough shoulder.
What if you got rid of parking? Use that as a bike
Yeah,
lane?
yeah. Well, getting rid of parking, yes, it's. I think.
So I would ask, you guys have some nice comments. Can you please send them into the Repave PCH website? And I think it would be good with some of the items you're asking about to let Ryan go in a little bit with the master plan review. Part of what we're dealing with on this process and the projects that we have, we're working to get the repaving done. We have environmental clearances we have to maintain. These are being run forward as a lowest level. If we get into higher level, it creates longer time frames, delays things out further. The initial intent of these projects was pavement rehabilitation. We're using them to add additional safety features and other work in there. So I understand what you're saying, I hear you. We'll work through where we can, but please turn your comments in and writing. That'll be helpful to hear from the community. We are getting different asks. I will say that up front. We've had asks for bike lanes and people saying you have to put them in. We have other people saying, no, don't put them in. And so we're working to balance things as best we can.
A few questions. What will be the finished height of the finished road plus tolerance when you're done? The extra layer you're putting on?
Yeah, we're removing 2 inches of pavement, old pavement, and replacing it with 2 inches.
You're removing 2 inches?
2 inches, and we're gonna put back 2 inches.
So you're maintaining the current height to the road?
Current height, yes, no change.
Okay. The current state of the road, obviously, is in bad shape, right? The ocean side has lost its shoring for the most part, and the tremendous truckloads that are always on that roadway. Can you explain to me your plan with the timeline that you have with the current state of the road, how it'll be shored up, and how the road will be maintained as safe with all the heavy trucks on it, for how long they're going to be on it? And I ask that because during the same period you outlined here, we're going to be rebuilding the beach. So we're going to need a lane of that, K-railed, just like the Army Corps is doing now. So I'd like to understand how all that incorporates in the plan I just heard.
The project is scheduled as we mentioned before, and it will be 2-year construction. But from now until the project, if there is pavement deterioration or there is something that breaks, we have our maintenance crews, we have a director's order who can take care of the pavement from now until our project begins. Once our project begins, the paving that we're doing is good for 10 years. Then
I'm not sure you understand what I mean. If when you're repaving the road, the way you go about it, how are you going to handle if one of the properties caves in towards the beach?
As part of the ongoing recovery effort and removal of debris effort that Army Corps of Engineers is engaged in, we're working through this. We have staff, our engineers on the engineering services side are working with us. Once they get clearance to go into the properties, they'll be evaluating those retaining walls. This southern project where a lot of the homes along the ocean burned, the southern CAPM is currently in the environmental document phase. So we have time within the design period to adjust with this. We'll be doing the evaluation over the next several months as we work with the Army Corps of Engineers and get the clearance on the right of entry to put people in there and check things and making those assessments. And then as we go through with the other parts, those will have to be integrated. I'll let Osama speak to a little bit of the construction stage.
Yeah, so definitely we're not trying here to do our pavement while all this is going on shoring up the beach side with the retaining walls or what have you. So we can always do the project in a way that these areas are short before they get their overlay. So that's something that we are very mindful of, and that's something we're working with other agencies on seeing that to fruition first before we go in and do those sections. So by that time we get there, those sections should be taken care of. If there is any retaining wall that needs extensive work that is not going to line up with the project milestones and deadlines, then we would take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you. Just something to look at. I won't tie everybody up here tonight, but relative to the comments that you just made, I appreciate the timeline. Just understand the timelines you put up there do not align with how we intend to rebuild. You're going to be way behind us. You're going to hold us up if you stay on this schedule. So I just ask you to look at it, willing to talk with you offline any way to help, but that schedule doesn't work.
Understood and noted. Thank you.
Last question, more of a thing as well. I see that this construction is going to happen during the Olympics. You really intend that to happen?
Well, our schedules are trying to put the two projects, basically one before the Olympics and one after in
So you're
turn.
staggered.
So we're staggered.
Yeah, so we recognize that it's a 27 to 29 timeline. We're going to have a gap in there where work won't be occurring. That's the last item I heard a few months ago that was the plan. The department is looking at opportunities to move things through quicker. We need to give us time, though, to get through the environmental document process and then enter the design phase.
So my one last request here in this, I don't mean to grab the mic. My understanding with the most recent governor's executive order is that I would consider this infrastructure that needs to be done to support rebuilding quickly. I would think relative to what you're doing with environmental and the design, let's pull that puppy way back and let's get after it instead of the typical process you're doing. Because if I'm right, you will have authorization that you can fast track this a lot more. We want it done right, don't get me wrong, we want quality, but I don't think you have to stick to the guideline you're usually used to, and I'd ask you to look into that.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you pointed out your read on the governor's order. I will bother Refugio to go look deeply at that, as well as Janice, to see what we can do. When you said we are behind, I want to make sure, are you saying get the construction work and the repaving done sooner, as soon as the utilities finish, and then allow the rebuilding of the homes to occur?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What I expect, what I heard from Colonel Sasser is that they will be done by the end of May on PCH. What I know, speaking with ACOM on site yesterday, I think they'll be done between the end of this month and the first week of May.
Great. Could you,
Anything you can do to pull it back in, coincide closer with that, would be spot on.
if you can throw that in writing, I know they want to collect all these, so we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi. I traveled to Santa Monica for the meeting last time, and I asked you there, you're planning to build a 9-lane wide crosswalk across Pacific Coast Highway at Entrada Drive. Was there a traffic engineering study done about how long that crosswalk will need for a walk cycle and what the effect on Pacific Coast Highway traffic will be? And I was told, yeah, we did that study. So then I asked, what are the results? How long is that light going to need to be red for Pacific Coast Highway? You guys said you'd bring me the results. What are the results? How long is Pacific Coast Highway going to get a red cycle for that crosswalk? Then I would ask, you're putting in the crosswalk because you have an existing tunnel that
Wheelchairs can't go up and down, and it's narrow, and it's substandard, and it's icky. Understood. Why are you raising the bridge instead of lowering the river? Why aren't you putting in a replacement for that tunnel or a bridge in order to solve your problem? If the problem is you have a critical pedestrian crossing at a very busy, very strange geometry intersection, why on earth are you going to introduce pedestrians to that mix?
Okay, Mr. Lance Hines, I hear you, and I had the pleasure of talking to you in the meeting in Santa Monica, and we are looking at that and considering that. One of the issues that for us is challenging is upgrading the current pedestrian tunnel, and we're not trying to impede by any means through traffic on PCH because we understand very well the volumes that we're dealing at that location. But we're considering all your comments from last meeting and this meeting, and we will look into that.
What was the traffic engineering study? How long would that signal need to be read for?
Hans, we're gonna let the team put that together. I'll follow up with Osama, and we'll get those numbers for you. When you said we were introducing pedestrians out there, pedestrians have already been introducing themselves. When our team was conducting the road safety audit for the Southern Capital Preventive Maintenance Project last spring of 2024, they observed people jaywalking through that area. And so we're putting the crosswalk in because we're seeing the need, and people are already crossing in that area. We know the tunnel exists. We know the tunnel was built, designed to build the standards probably in the 1930s when it was put in. It is there. It'll be maintained. We need to put this other crossing in.
28 years, I haven't hit one yet.
That's good.
Well done.
On the repaving project, the first phase, I didn't hear the word Guernsey mentioned, the traffic light at Guernsey, which you guys said is temporary. Is that why we're not getting any pedestrian facilities there? We're not getting any ADA ramps? Because that crosswalk is essential for people crossing from my neighborhood to the ocean.
So currently the project, Guernsey is a temporary signal currently, but we've heard comments that we received about to look into doing, keeping that after the construction project, and we'll look into that.
If you keep it, it would need pedestrian improvements. There's no place to stand. There's no place to push the button and wait. So this project should include as if that signal is going to become permanent, because it is a permanent installation that you may be planning to take out, but it's a permanent facility, the way you built it nicely. Thank you. But we would really like that crosswalk to stay. For several reasons, to meter traffic on the highway, among others.
Understood. Thank you.
I apologize, one last question. We've had a lot of talk in the city because of rebuild about geotechnical concerns, because of where we are. With you doing the work on the highway and the shoring issues that I talked about, going forward with this planned and funded, is it safe for me to assume that there's no geotechnical risk relative to the highway with all the truckloads? The road's safe, therefore we really don't have a geotech concern on PCH?
Well, our structure folks are gonna make sure that that's not the case before we do any work. So we have our own folks that are doing assessments for that, so.
But having it planned, your expectation is that everything's gonna be fine. I'm not questioning that it won't be. I'm saying by proceeding this way, you're all engineers, you're saying, yeah, it's reasonable, it's conceptual, it's gonna be up.
So the project is a capital preventive maintenance. Initial focus is pavement rehabilitation, extending the service life for the pavement. We're adding some additional features. In terms of geotechnical hazards that exist in the area, they exist here in Southern California, they're throughout the area. I think if the city and others are recommending geotechnical studies, I would follow that. We do have areas, as you look at the roadway, we've got areas where we have existing slides, material sloughing off. Those are known issues. The department works to address those as we go forward. But within this project, we're focusing on capital preventive maintenance and rehabilitating the pavement. We're adding additional safety features where we can with this work.
to say.
So I would say do the geotechnical studies if that's what the city and the county are recommending and requiring.
I didn't want to get into that, but in so many words, what I heard you say was that this isn't necessarily a new road, it's an existing road that you're modifying for maintenance. That's all.
Yeah.
It's good.
That's,
All right, thank you, everyone. If there are no more questions, we will move on to the PCH, draft PCH master plan feasibility study.
Very good. Well, good to see everybody again. This next presentation is about the master plan. The previous projects, again, were shorter term, a repaving project. So this plan is looking forward. And with this plan, we're able to do more ambitious things than they are able to do in the repaving project. So just a reminder of the goals of what we're trying to accomplish with this plan. We've got huge safety issues that we're trying to address. We are trying to improve conditions for pedestrians and bicyclists and people using transit. We've got to be mindful that there are emergency access needs here, and evacuation needs. And so we've got a lot of goals that we're trying to balance as we're doing this plan moving forward. On top of that, we've got a limited right-of-way to work with. So we've got to try to fit what we can within that. Just a summary of the outreach we've done. We've done these community meetings starting last, I think, July. We did our charrette, and then a few other meetings and workshops. We've had 2 surveys that we've done. We've got our interactive website that people can continuously comment on. We've done a lot of stakeholder meetings with individual sort of stakeholder groups and individuals. And we've had social media as well. So we've been trying to gather input and communicate as much as we could during this process. So with all of the analysis that we did crash analysis, we spent time in the field, we talked to you, and have come up with a list of tools in our, I like to think of it as a toolbox, that we're applying at different locations, so that roundabouts and new sidewalks and colored buffered protected bike lanes, staggered parking, and I'll go through these, where we're applying each one of these types of strategies. We've got lane reductions, angled parking, emergency access medians. We're looking at using traffic calming and trees to do that, improved pedestrian crosswalks and gateways. So a set of tools that we're applying here. We are looking at roundabouts. So roundabouts will replace existing intersections that are either just T intersections or, in one case, at least signalized intersections. And at these 9 locations, so this particular illustration here is at El Matador. We believe that the roundabouts are a safer intersection treatment, and they also facilitate traffic flow better and enable people to cross the road more easily. So at these 9 locations, we're proposing roundabouts. Especially, most of these are at some of the T intersections at the north end of the city where people are coming in without much traffic control at all, trying to make left turns and the like. This should, these should help quite a bit with that. We do have some proposed sidewalks, and the biggest sidewalk, or the longest segment of sidewalk that we're proposing is between Las Flores Road and Carbon Canyon Road. There is no sidewalk there. And so that is something that we really have to add, and that's per Americans with Disabilities Act. It's also within Senate Bill 960. So a really important feature there. West of Carbon Canyon Road, there are some spot improvements, some locations where there's a place where there's very little sidewalk, or there's a sidewalk but there's a mailbox or a tree in the middle of the sidewalk. Those will have to be remedied. Cross Creek to Webb Way and the beach side, and I think in the other project they're already working on that one, and some of the connections to bus stops will also be done during the capital improvement maintenance projects. And we're proposing in some locations, we'll show this angled parking for beach access, and where we've got that, we'd like to add sidewalks so people have a place, so they're not parking on the road and walking along the road to get to the beach. They'll have a sidewalk to walk on. And the proposed sidewalks here, again, the location between Las Flores and Carbon Canyon. And I can't even read. But these are the locations, the ones that I mentioned. The ones at the north end are really where we're looking at the angled parking and adding parking spaces on the beach side. And these will be places where we would remove parking on the mountain side, just have it on the beach side, but have a place for people to walk there. We are proposing colored, buffered or colored and protected bike lanes. And by the way, we've got options. So this is a feasibility study. We've determined what's feasible. And so for these segments, these road segments, in many locations we're showing 2 or 3 potential alternatives, the selected one to be chosen at a later time. And in many places we've got, along the blue segments, either buffered bike lanes, which means there'll be a striped bike lane and a painted buffer between the bike lane and the moving cars, or it would be a protected bike lane with physical barriers like Michelle's been asking for. And that's because during the process of when we've been talking to everybody, there are quite a few people who want the protected bike lanes. There's also another group that really does not like protected bike lanes. And those are the people who are out, sort of the club riders who are out there today. They ride in groups. The protected bike lanes are something that they do not favor. So we're leaving those 2 options open to be decided later on. But you'll see in the blue there, it's either buffered and colored, which is a big improvement over what we've got now, bike lanes, or protected. The green area shown in that is the area between Las Flores and, I believe, Carbon Canyon Terrace, where there's maybe even a little bit further north around the pier. There's parking on both sides, and it's really difficult to put protected bike lanes in when there's parking that way, because there's a lot of sort of interference between the parking and the protected bike lanes. So, and sight distance issues, people coming in and out of driveways and the like. So in that area, we're really looking at the buffered bike lanes. We're proposing staggered parking, and the purpose of this is, and your question, Helen, about where removing parking, we are removing parking along some stretches of PCH where there's 3 things that we're trying to accomplish with this. One, we don't want people parking on one side of the road and running across to the other side of the road. It's a real safety hazard, and it's very common today. 2, we don't want people parking along the highway and then walking along the highway, which is a really common safety hazard, again. And the third reason is that we do believe that SB 960 is telling us we need to put bike lanes in. And if we don't remove parking on one side, we don't have space for the bike lanes. So this solves 3 problems. And we've only done this in areas where we believe that the parking we have left is adequate to serve the demand that's out there. So it's a trade-off, but we believe that the safety issues are worth the trade-off in these locations. And then we'll see later on that we've actually added quite a bit of parking. So here's a place where we're leaving the parking on the beach side in the map here, like Latigo Canyon. The Latigo Canyon Winding Way Paradise Cove area is really where this comes out the most. Leaving parking on the beach side where it's most needed. Where we've got the Winding Way trailhead to Escondido Falls, We left parking on the mountainside because people need to park on that side, but not the other side. So we've gained the space from removing parking in those locations. Proposed lane reductions with some angled parking. Once we get west or north of Trancas Canyon, whichever you want to call it, traffic volumes come down quite a bit. And so we're proposing to come down to one lane in each direction, or one lane with a passing lane in some locations. But it gives us space for the bike lanes, but again, angled parking on the beach side. So we're actually adding parking. And the numbers we're actually adding, and I'll show a table on this a little bit later on, but it comes along with parking on just the beach side. So the new and improved crosswalks, especially in the area between Las Flores and Carbon Canyon Terrace, where a lot of crashes have occurred and there are speed issues, we're trying to do a number of things. We're trying to make it safer to cross the highway, but we're also trying to introduce some things like the quick curve delineators in this diagram to channelize the traffic. We're trying to slow the cars down at the crosswalk. And here's a potential treatment where we've got the channelization, we've got the bike lanes, we've got crossing islands, and possibly even a speed table is something we're going to look at. And this type of treatment in that area where we've got a lot of speeding, we believe is something that can help to slow the traffic down and make it a much safer cross. And if we've got several of these, it should have some impact on slowing traffic throughout that area. And we're adding, so you asked about, Damon, you asked about the Rambla Vista bus stop. Either add a crosswalk there or move the bus stop to Carbon Canyon. That's the other option in that location. But Carbon Canyon beach access, we're going to have an improved access or crossing there. Carbon Canyon west access, there's a crossing there now, but we're going to upgrade it to a full signal and this type of treatment. Winding Way to be studied, and at Lechuza Beach to be studied. Those are also possible new crosswalks. And then some other crossing improvements that we have, and these are already things that the city's working on, the Moon Shadows bus stop, and we saw that the team here is already putting that in. The La Costa Beach access, it's upgraded from a hybrid beacon to a full signal. And then at Corral Beach and Sarah Juan Trailhead, a crossing there as well. We don't know, and as you'll see in some of these slides I put in that the fire may have changed what actually gets done, because we don't know at this point what's going to happen with rebuilding of Moon Shadows or the residential properties or anything. So we have to proceed with what we know for now. So it's an open. So this is a map showing the pedestrian crossing improvements. Gateways were something that we floated the idea, and it was a really popular idea, both in the workshops and in the surveys. So, and we like the idea of gateways. They are an opportunity to help do what we call bringing sort of character to the community, placemaking, and they could be an opportunity for public art. So this is just kind of a sample of a could-be gateway with some dolphins on it, but these could be art projects and make them reflect the character of Malibu. And one of the things I know that you're trying to do with this project is transfer this from a big highway to something that fits within the context better. And this is an opportunity to do that. But gateways also slow cars down. People understand when they go through a gateway that they're entering a new context. And we want them to understand that. And it's a tool, the gateways are a tool to help do that. And so we're looking at 3 possible locations for gateways. One, the Webway roundabout will be like a gateway itself, but at Sarah Road and Rambla Vista are also possible locations, but could be put in more as well. Now we have cross sections for the entire length of PCH in Malibu, and I could show you all those. I've just, in the interest of time, I'm going to show you some samples, but I've got other slides hidden in case there's any segments that you want to see that you don't see. But these are some samples of the types of things we're proposing for every segment. South City limit to Las Flores Road, it goes from 68 feet to about 75 feet wide, and we're at 75 feet. We've got several options to get alternative 1. There are protected bike lane on one side, regular bike lane on the other side. And again, on the beach side, if housing is rebuilt, it's challenging to put protected bike lanes in there because of the housing and the parking that they are using. So that will probably be a striped bike lane in there, but could be buffered if we have enough space. Another option is 2-way protected bike lane on the mountain side. That's one way we could have protected bike lanes throughout that whole segment. And then a third alternative is to have colored and buffered bike lanes on both sides. From Las Flores to Rambla Vista, we don't have a lot of options here because it's narrow. Again, there are no sidewalks at all, no bike lanes at all. And I know we've got concerns about turning out of driveways. The trade-off we have to make here is to remove the center turn lane, but that gives us enough space to add sidewalks and the bike lanes. And again, with Americans with Disabilities Act regulations and Senate Bill 960, we believe this is something that we pretty much have to do. So this is what we're proposing there. But if the fire changes anything, then who knows what can happen along that segment. Rambla Vista to Carbon Beach Terrace, several options again. Protected buffer, colored buffered bike lanes, again the buffer being the painted buffer. Carbon Beach Terrace to Sarah Road, and this is getting in the more commercial section. Buffered bike lanes on both sides, and the city would like this to be an emergency lane in the middle. So that's a possibility with some barriers on the side, quick curb type treatments on the side of this. And then another option, I know, again, this central segment is something where there's been a lot of interest in trying to, again, do placemaking, create more of a boulevard or a main street environment in the center of the city. And a landscape median would help to do that. This option retains parking, and we have a rendering of something like this. Could look something on the order of this. And then if we want to be even more ambitious with this type of placemaking or main street making, take out parking altogether and widen the sidewalks and put in more landscaping and outdoor seating and dining and that sort of thing. And then a rendering of what, that might look like, just one concept. But again, possibility. These are trade-offs. And a lot of these things are all about trade-offs. And that's how we tried to frame the community discussion, is that we've got so much right-of-way, and we've got so many things we're trying to accomplish at different places. How do we maximize what we're trying to do? The trade-off here is that emergency access will be more difficult. And if we're going to widen the sidewalk, that's a real benefit to the sidewalk and to the sort of the feel and character of the place, but the parking is sacrificed. So trade-offs, and again, decisions to be made later on as to exactly what happens here. But we've looked at the options. Moving along Sarah Road to Cross Creek, could do protected bike lanes there. It's wide enough. Another alternative would be the colored buffered, and it's wide enough for pretty wide bike lanes here. And then Cross Creek to Webb Way. This is also very wide. We have enough space here where we could put angled parking in and use that for access to the beach. One of the challenges that we're running into, Coastal Commission and MRCA is wanting us to keep as much parking access as possible. So we've taken a significant amount of parking out in different locations. We're looking for places where we can add parking, such as this, and this is in a very critical area where people could get to the beach. They could also crosswalk over to the commercial area here. But protected bike lanes are an option there. And again, the colored buffered bike lanes are another option there. Latigo Canyon to approximately 1,800 feet south of Morning View Drive. This is really getting close to Zuma Beach from Latigo Canyon. And this is this stretch where I showed you the staggered parking. We've got an option for protected bike lanes. So yeah, this option, so in one place, again, showing the parking on the mountainside would be in the Winding Way area. And then parking on the beach side would be the other areas, closer to Latigo Canyon and closer to Paradise Cove. But again, the option for both protected or buffered bike lanes. Oops, no. Okay, now this is really the Zuma Beach area. And we've got several options here, but on the beach side, there's a lot of kind of space right there that right now is just sort of dirt. And we think that that could be an opportunity again to replace some of the parking that we've taken out in other places and put in angled parking there. A place where we could put in protected bike lanes, or again, the buffered and colored bike lanes is another option. And then El Matador to the north city limit. Again, this is where we're coming down to one lane in each direction with the angled parking on the beach side where there's beach, not the whole stretch, but where there is beach. And this could be done here. And it could be done with protected bike lanes and a sidewalk, or it could be done with, again, the colored buffered bike. But we would also add a sidewalk on the beach side. Now we also, so those were sort of the linear cross sections that we looked at. And again, we've got others in there. If you want to see them, we could unhide those slides and bring those up. But we also looked at intersections at the highest crash locations, the top 11 intersections. And we applied a set of intersection, what we call countermeasures to these. And I've got slides of all of them, but I left the slides of the ones that I thought you might be most interested in. This one is PCH and Bonsall Drive or Westwood Beach Road. There's a couple options here where we can, prohibit left turns and some minor things like that. Or the big option is to create a roundabout, and roundabouts don't always have to be round. They could be sort of oblong, like this one. And I think that this could, we could tee the intersection up in different ways, but doing something like this could really change that intersection. There's been a lot of crashes there. The Webb Way, we really think would make a good, it's the only place where we're proposing a multi-lane roundabout, but we think that this is a really good opportunity. There's enough space. The issue with multi-lane roundabouts is you need a lot of space. And this is a place where we do it. There's 7 lanes out there with all the turn lanes. And one of the nice things about roundabouts is you don't need turn lanes. So this enables us to bring this intersection down to 4 lanes and add some landscaping and some things like that, and some art features on the side, and maybe the central part of this roundabout is some sort of, again, placemaking or art feature as well. We're showing a fountain with dolphins out there on this one, but use your imagination. And here's another big one. PCH in Las Flores Canyon, there's a lot of, and we're treating this as one location because it is really a continuous intersection in a way. So we're adding a lot of, and I'll show you in the diagram, a lot of places that sort of narrow the intersection and choke it down some, allow it to function, but allow it to function in a more civilized way and in a slower way. I know there's been some interest in a roundabout there, but the space is not there. It's just, and it would have to be a complex double roundabout. But do we have a, is this a laser? Okay, we've added a lot of concrete in different places, like I said, to try to choke this intersection down some. You'll see on both sides, we think that at least at this location, the protected bike lanes would really help, again, to slow it down. And on the intersections, the T intersections, choking those curbs down some, putting curb extensions in so that those crossings are shorter. We've noticed people kind of speeding through this intersection and turning in, and even for this one over here, turning and going, like cutting straight across really fast. So the curb extension there would, and I'll also put an island in the middle there, so it would channelize traffic coming in there. They would have to slow down quite a bit to go through there. Same thing, putting in a little bit of a median island over there to, again, slow the vehicles down and to channelize them and just kind of choke the intersection down some. So, and I know the city's working on some other projects out at this location. We're looking at putting a sidewalk over the bridge there. I know there are other sort of bridge projects going in place too, so that might take the place of this, but this is what we're trying to do here. We're also, again, looking at things like, there's certain things we can do today with the toolbox we have, but I really believe that we're going to be able to do more with what we're calling V2X, Vehicle to Everything Communication. Some examples, speed enforcement cameras, which are already going in, but cameras that communicate in real time with the sheriff. So if somebody's going 80 miles an hour, sheriffs can find out right away, and they can track them down. Today's technology will allow for communications to warn of safety hazards, but only when motorists have transponders. So this is going to be an important feature of this kind of communication technology, when every vehicle has a transponder that can communicate with the infrastructure. That will enable lots of things to happen. Emergency vehicles will be able to communicate to drivers that they need to get through. But in the future, we're going to have technology that notifies motorists when they're speeding. And it could even get to the point where the speed limit's 45, the car just can't go more than, whatever set speed limit, 45, or maybe you get an extra 5 miles an hour, but there's a lot of things that can be done with this kind of technology. I think that'll enable us in some of these areas where people are speeding to do some other things. The parking analysis. So these locations, the first 3 locations up above, show where we took out some parking spaces in the plan. So we removed about 1,375 parking spaces, plus or minus some. But we've gained altogether a net gain of 900 spaces with the angled parking. Again, trying to respond to the Coastal Commission, MRCA, about take parking away, you have to replace it somewhere. It's not in the exact same location, but we're trying to address that issue of access that they're wanting. So we've actually gained 900 auto parking spaces, and we're proposing another 300 and some bicycle parking spaces too. If we've got decent bicycle access there, people will bicycle more than they are now. And having convenient parking out there will be part of that parking inventory as well. We've got planning level cost estimates for these things, and it ranges really wide. Depending on what all goes in, we're looking at sort of the low end of 62 million and a high end of $268 million for all of these features. Again, depending on what exactly goes in and price of concrete at the time and other things like that. But that's kind of where we're looking at for the range. We've identified funding sources, some state and federal sources, some local sources that are out there. And then we do have, this is challenging here. We have a phased plan. Yeah, so we've got sort of shorter term, medium term and long term, but so much of this is going to depend on when funding becomes available. If funding became available quickly, then this plan should go in much quicker. But a lot of it's just going to depend on, thank you, on when the city is able to get the funding and Caltrans is able to get the funding to do this. So some of the things we're looking at for short term, some of the high visibility crosswalks, speed reduction bars, a lot of paint type things, quick curbs, feedback signs, colored bike lanes, that sort of thing. And then sort of medium term, getting into some more accessibility enhancements, colored bike lanes or separated bikeways, some of the crosswalks, gateways, and those landscaping, speed tables, lane reduction, removal of parking with the staggered parking and the like, new sidewalks, and then sort of the long term, I think the multi-lane roundabout, especially at Webb Way, the lane reductions. And we did have, we talked about a national park-like system where we come down to one lane in each direction plus a bike lane, or bus lane and bike lanes. If that were to be done, it would need some parking lots, it would need a significant amount of money for operating expenses for the buses. But, that could be a long-term solution, and then some of the things with the V2X changes. And with that, I'm going to, Alex, talk about this, but then we'll open it up for questions and answers, but we've got just 2 more slides to go through here.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Right here we have the QR code, so you can access the draft study. So we can leave it up for a minute. If you go ahead and scan it, it'll take you directly to the draft study. That'd be the QR code on the left. The one on the right will take you to our website. Oh, yes, and sorry, we have it up here on the table on the left hand, on the right hand side.
And the draft study's on the website as well, right?
Yep, the draft study's on the website as well. I'll pull that up in a second, but I'll give everyone a moment to pull it up now if they'd like.
Yeah, that would be the QR code on the left.
Yep, QR code on the left.
QR code on the left. Okay, and then...
Actually, you can go ahead and try to pull up the website now.
It's up there as well. You can still get it.
Didn't you want to go over that slide?
Oh, we're going to pull up the website just to see.
Oh, okay.
So like I said, right now here at this meeting, if you want to pull it up, you can go ahead and scan the QR codes up here, and we can also bring it up at the end. If you were to pull it up on our website, you'll see it right here, the draft feasibility study. When you click on that, it'll bring you here to this participate landing. Once you click that, you'll see the draft study. And the other thing to know about the draft study site is this is actually where you can go ahead and leave comments. There's 2 ways you can provide comments to us. The comment period is going to be for the next 60 days, ending June 9th. So the first way to provide comments would just be to email us at our email address right here. Or we have these comment sections. We have a comment section for general comments and specific comments. We just ask that when you're filling out a comment specific to a page or a section, if you can just enter that information, it'll help us track it and better respond to it.
Yeah, and you want to do upcoming workshops? Oh, okay. We're going to Q&A now. If we can go ahead and ask questions. You want to go over to the microphone? That'd be great. Thank you.
So from one of the last pictures, it looks like the big roundabouts aren't going in for 20 years. Is that a long-term project?
The roundabouts would, well, first of all, there is a short-term one going in
By Matador?
El Matador, right?
Yeah, good.
So that's kind of an initial beginning.
Fantastic.
It's not going to be a fully built, but it's going to be functional.
It'll help get people aware of what roundabouts can do.
Exactly.
Anybody who's ever been to Europe, they're very functional. They'll be fantastic.
Yep.
Is it possible to incorporate some of your ideas there in the near term? For instance, at Las Flores, which is the worst intersection in town, maybe you could do some of the features during the repavement project, extending those concrete things, instead of waiting to do some improvements there. It's a horrible intersection, as you know. And so maybe you could incorporate some things sooner to increase safety there. And then also going northbound as you approach Bonsall, which you had the oblong roundabout at, if you move the fire hydrant away from the road and made a little turn exit lane into Bonsall, you wouldn't have a lot of problems there, because people come down the hill and then you have those problems right there. So there's a sort of a pinch point right there, because that fire hydrant's right there, downhill, and there's no shoulder. So I don't know whether we can move that fire hydrant so we can have a little turn lane so people can exit.
Let me pass your question on to the team over here. I know one of the issues with not being able to do a lot of what's in the plan at this point is that many of these things would trigger environmental review, and in the interest of trying to get the pavement done quicker,
And let's do whatever we can do.
do whatever we can do.
So,
Yeah.
The adding a deceleration lane there to reach Bonsall, I think, is going to be challenging. The other part we've got is the large, I'm going to call it a hedge, as you're going northbound on PCH, coming down the hill. Someone, property owner there, we need to determine property lines and cut things back if we can. Otherwise, we'll be impacting someone's existing landscaping that may be on their property. So there's a few challenges in there. I think the better way right now, I know it's a right in. There is a left turn allowed. It may be better to move it to a right turn in, right turn out only for this period to initially start. But we'll have to look at that. We can come back to it, Merrill. If you can give us the suggestions in writing, that'll be great, because then we've got them in writing and they help us with working through these processes.
And then to his question about some of the improvements around Las Flores.
I think we can look at that. I know the city's also doing some additional studies around Las Flores, so I'll hand it to Osama for that.
Let me have one more thing before I leave. The Zuma underpass has gotten delayed again, and during the summer, when people can't turn under there, there's traffic that backs up from Zuma to Zumarez. So we need to sort of put that on the schedule.
Okay, and that, yeah.
Yeah, we're aware of that. Going back to Las Flores, we've done a project to put a left turn pocket, a protected left turn pocket there. And also we're working with the city. We're doing a bridge upgrade for that area. And we're adding some more basically improvements in a bigger project that we're working with the city of Malibu on. So that's in the works too. Hopefully, it's not going to take 21 years like the feasibility study. So that's something that we have in the works.
Would any, again to his question, but would any of those other improvements that we propose at Las Flores, could those, or would they trigger?
I'm just asking, whatever you can do, please do.
Yeah.
Like the crew has done a great job keeping the center pylons intact there,
Yeah.
because that's really the only thing that we've been able to do. And so the old crew in Las Flores and the new crew have done a great job with that.
Yeah.
But
Whether,
whatever we can do is what I'm asking.
there are some challenges with the right of way, and we have a gas line, and we have, a lot of other issues at that intersection to deal with. We have the close proximity to Rumble,
I understand them all.
Pacifico. Yeah, so
20
believe me,
years.
it's a very challenging intersection.
Yeah, and the other part that goes Las Flores, which segment is that in? Refugio, that's the southern one, so we're in the environmental document. If we have the right-of-way data and some survey data, I don't want to commit team. We can let them take a quick look and see if they see anything, whether it'll be simple or if we're going to trigger more issues to get into it.
Whatever you can do.
Yeah.
And that one, as long as we keep within the same footprint, no widening, that way we don't have environmental and coastal commission issues. Rob?
Yeah. So I just want to point out the city is doing that project. Like Osama mentioned, that we're doing a project at Las Flores and Rambo Pacifico, looking at reconfiguring that whole intersection. We're going to do a very holistic approach, looking at that whole intersection, what can be done. If it means replacing whatever needs to be done, replaced out there, we're going to look to see what kind of configuration that can be best optimized to improve safety in there. So that we're looking, nothing's off the table we're going to look at. We're going to go through that. We're going to team up with Caltrans and actually come up with, develop some really good concepts and plans and move forward. We do have some metro funding currently right now, and we're starting that, and that's a project that we're going to be implementing and looking to get the ball rolling here pretty soon, right? Thanks. Thanks, Rob.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, I'm excited. Okay, great. Okay, good. So 3 questions, going through this pretty fast. First of all, I apologize if you said this. I had to step out for a few moments. Is there a timeline of when this draft will be finalized? In other words, what's your expected before it goes from draft to final plan?
Yeah, so we've got a couple more workshops we're going to show you, but we should be able to finalize this, Charles, Alex, by June or so? Huh? June 9th, yeah. Yeah, 60 day, we're giving a 60-day review period.
And then does it get signed off by whatever appropriate higher powers as a final plan, or does it have to then go through approvals before it becomes final? Marlon? That's a Marlon question.
Thank you, Damien. Yeah, I mean, we're going to make sure that we take all comments and refine what we find out.
Sure.
And of course, we're going to go through the approval process. We hope to finalize the document a couple weeks after the review period closes, so
it's
around
not
June
a long
30th.
process to finalize.
It shouldn't be. That's the hope.
Should. Marlon does. No,
I'm not the district director, but the district director will have the final say on when it gets finalized, but we anticipate it will be final by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th.
That's great, thank you. And I'm not familiar with Caltrans's mechanisms. Once this is finalized, is that essentially set in stone, or is that sort of the guide map, and in the future, as things come up, it will change, it will adjust, swaying of this, swaying of that? How solid is this plan?
Okay, so this is a feasibility study. We've looked at all the possibilities that we can do, and we've shown what's feasible. Actual decisions to move forward will be made later on in a combination with the city and Caltrans, but most likely within the alternatives that we've presented. And then the next phase, once the decision is made to go forward with a particular element of this plan, we'll go into what we call a PID phase, project initiation document, which moves in towards a little bit of preliminary engineering and a little more detail. And then that sets us up to do design and construction later on.
So there is still wiggle room in terms of
there's wiggle
good or
room in
bad,
terms of
what will actually happen.
And
what
some
will
things will
actually-
have to go through environmental review. So yeah, there's
You'll still
definitely
have to deal
wiggle
with
room
coastal
as
commission to actually get certain things
Yes.
done, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. And then the last part, I do want to flag, and this might be outside of the scope, but I want to flag this because it is still Caltrans jurisdiction. Pacific Coast Highway, as it approaches Las Posas Road, where it actually starts to become a freeway, you have a gap there in terms of the safety of cyclists as they have to exit PCH to get onto Las Posas Road, and then there is a bike lane. You have a gap there in terms of you've got a section, small sections where cyclists are forced fully into the road, where there is no side shoulder or anything like that on the bridge and some of the on and off ramps. I think that's a little bit outside of your feasibility study. I'm not sure on that, but I'm flagging that because it is the gap between that and the next actual bike lane and bike infrastructure that is safe. And that is a bit of a hot spot in terms of collisions in that particular area there over the last, I think 10 years is when I last looked at it.
Very good, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember exactly where
Ventura County.
Yeah,
Ventura,
that's what
the
I
Ventura
thought.
side.
Yeah, so after this study, we're actually going to do McClure Tunnel to the Malibu border, and then Malibu limit to Oxnard.
I got it.
Same
So that is
kind
the
of
next step.
exercise that we're doing here, that's next.
Great, thank you.
Sure. And I know what you're gonna say.
You know, I've been here a lot. This is Shelley Smith, 31-year resident, despite the accent. I've made mention of this, and I don't think that, I think I'm getting too bad, too sad for my whole community. You only gave us one option, and the one thing we were asking for was that median for emergency use, as you know, the city wants for other communities. I don't know why we don't count for that. And also for turning into our driveways. And I don't just mean the people on PCH. I mean the La Costa hillside have to get in and out of Rambla Vista. This is affecting the businesses at the end. I don't think you've heard us. I think there are other communities that are being heard. We have emailed you. We have made comments on your website. We've done it all, but I don't feel heard at all.
We have heard you, definitely, but the constraints are just what they
Well, there
are.
must be some way you could work it out, because the other communities are getting what they need and want, but not the residents.
Well, that segment is only 77 feet wide. We have to put sidewalks in, and we have to put the bike lanes
So
in.
what is the remedy for people who want to get in their homes?
We
What
are-
is that?
We'll have places where you can do U-turns and come
And
around.
the reason why you had problems with Las Flores and was because there were accidents backing up. You don't see that happening for this?
There will have to be designs done to those intersections where we have U-turns to try
And
to
where are they gonna
minimize.
be, what intersections? There's no room, as you just said. So where?
We don't have curb to curb space to put everything in that we need to put there.
So what do you say?
I'm
Again, I
saying
am
that
asking you
there
how
will
people.
be places
Where?
along the highway
Where?
at the intersections, and that's a detail that has yet to be
At the
determined.
intersections that are like, more than a half mile off? I mean,
Ryan?
where are people? I know you're not really answering.
So your questions are concerning the area just south of Carbon Canyon and between Las Flores?
Yes.
Okay, so a couple things we're working on with City of Malibu is we've got pedestrian signals. Those allow U-turns. They're north of Carbon Canyon. We're gonna be looking at some signal to, please let me work through it.
I'm not
Okay.
even saying anything. I'm
So-
just saying,
Okay, so they're there, you've got to go some distance now. We're in the process, I've been talking with our environmental folks, we're working with City of Malibu, see if we can get some other things done. We're trying to get another pedestrian signal put in north of Carbon Canyon. That was called for in the 2015 safety study, so we're working to do that near the coastal access there. Those allow U-turns, so that would be north of where you're at. South, we'll work with Rob, we're looking at some features there. We'll see where we can find some things south of there. We'll continue to work with Rob, see if we've got some opportunities to build in some U-turn
you're
spots.
negating an entire community. You really are. That's what you're doing. And also, what about you've mentioned that there was emergency access, the city wanted that in the median, but I guess this community doesn't need that. Well, that's a chokehold on all the other communities, because they have to pass through. those ambulances have to pass through. So that's not working, I think, for Malibu.
You're talking about removing the two-way left turn lane through that stretch to allow emergency
Yes.
access through, yeah. And I think
It
that's.
also functions as an
Right, and I think
emergency.
that's part of the discussion we're gonna continue to have from our side, with the safety side. We'll work with the planning team, we'll work with the city. He's laid out a number of concepts here. We can go deeper dive later, and I can talk with Ryan offline on this. Take a look through that section of Las Flores to Carbon Canyon.
Well, I'm gonna leave, I mean, there's nothing more, like I said, I've said it, my neighbors have said it, they've emailed, we've done everything you suggested, but I don't see that there has been a response.
And we've
That's
had
the way-
conversations with the city about this very issue.
Yeah, and the city
So
wants what I want.
We're aware of it, and we understand why it's an issue. There's trade-offs that
I
have to be
understand this
made.
trade-off, we're being traded off, that's what I'm hearing. As residents of a community. People who live here every single day and have needs.
Well, but there are other needs as well.
Yeah,
So
for-
people
for
can't
the-
walk along there today,
Right,
so they need a sidewalk, they need to be able to walk.
I didn't say don't take
Huh?
I didn't say take that away. I wouldn't mind a sidewalk myself.
Yeah, but we can't fit the sidewalk in if we keep the turn lane.
I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, and I know we hear you, and it sounds like a lot of conversations have happened
Yes.
behind the scenes, and this is not the excuse me, final plan. We will continue having those conversations, but I think for now we're going to let other
All
folks
right,
ask
I
their
just want to be
questions.
heard.
We
and
appreciate
heard
you.
Very, distinctly.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for coming to both meetings. We really appreciate it. And
I've been to a lot more than two
oh, sorry, I'm
meetings.
sorry. 2 meetings that I've been to, many meetings.
Right, and it was lovely to meet you.
Thank you. You as well. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I'm a friend, though I sound like a foe. So I'm lost. You don't talk about speed. You don't talk about traffic. You don't talk about, you talk that this plan is a possibility. Well, if I was 6'5", I'd be a basketball player. The chances of this coming to fruition is in my lifetime, my children's lifetime. I mean, it's all fine. We've now been coming to this for almost a year, of course, with the interruptions and everything of nature kind of beaming down on us. But we've all talked we've all given information, but we're sitting here and you're going through the next phase. You've now said it'll be between 60 million and 200 something million, but no talk about where that money's coming from. So if you don't have the money, all this is for naught. And then my only other point is, really, we're not dealing with the reality of the situation. Are we a highway? Are we a boulevard? Are we a street? What is the 21 miles of Malibu that is PCH?
Just a few things. I do believe that we've narrowed travel lanes, which, as you pointed out earlier, do slow cars down. Adding bike lanes and colored bike lanes that will create a narrower feel of the highway and should slow cars down. The roundabouts should slow vehicles down. Sort of at the north end, where we're coming down to 2 lanes, that'll definitely slow cars down. The new crosswalks, again with the channelization in there, that's an attempt to slow the vehicles down some and make it more civilized. All of the concrete treatments around Las Flores and Los Ramblas are meant to slow the cars down and the turning movements and all of that. So we're applying a toolbox as we can. Putting new crosswalks in that have that channelization in those critical areas, I think will help make a difference. So we're applying toolboxes as we can. The funding issue, it's a challenge. I mean,
Right, no,
you know,
I'm not
we have
criticizing.
identified funding sources in the plan, and a lot of it is going to come down to how successful, you know, we are at finding the money. And one of the challenges, frankly, that the city will have is some of the funding sources out there are prioritized for disadvantaged communities. And-
Which is us now.
Well, by definition of income and so
No, I
forth.
understand.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way the funding sources, formulas
So,
work.
I will say one thing, and I will never be quiet on this. Painting lanes and changing colors on a freeway. Where's the bike lane on the 101 and the 405? There is none, because you'd be insane. But yet, we're all talking about a bike lane on PCH, which by definition is a highway.
Yeah, well, we do have the option for protected bike lanes
Right, no,
along
I saw.
most of it.
Yeah.
Most of
I'm
it, and
just
it's a discussion we've had.
concerned.
Yeah, it's a discussion we've had with the city. I know the city's hearing from a lot of the cyclists who don't like the protected bike lanes. You know, they prefer some wider space to ride in, which we're giving them with the bike lanes. But and as a cyclist, I do believe that the bike lanes, especially the buffered bike lanes, we put in some pretty wide ones. I think they will be a whole lot better than what's out there today. There will be a space for you to ride in, and the cars should be going a bit slower.
And I'm not even a biker. I'm just, my concern is lives and safety. And that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. It's not whether it's a bike lane, whether, whatever. It's Vision Zero. I made a joke in my column in November and said, why don't we fight to make next year a zero death on PCH? And then in December, the fires started. And now we're down to a highway that's not being used or is only by permit and whatever. Maybe we'll have a zero death highway this year. But the issue is everything you're doing is not moving us towards that right now.
Let me ask a question.
Sure.
And I am in no position to offer this, but I'm just curious.
Right.
How many people here would be willing to wait a couple more years for us to do environmental review so that we could put more of these improvements in during the pavement project?
I need more information, hold on.
Huh?
Before I answer that, I need more information, because it sounds like it's your question.
It's a question. I said, so the issue with the pavement projects is that they have to, that there's a lot of pressure to have the pavement done now and to have it done quickly, which means that
You don't get the time.
we don't get through environmental review.
So,
And that's what's holding us up, and coastal permits and that sort of thing. That's what would hold us up from putting more of these improvements in during the CAP-M project or the pavement project. So the question is, would you be willing to wait a couple more years to go through the environmental process and the permitting process to try to get more of these improvements in while the pavement's done?
And
will you be saving lives?
I'm gonna kind of chime in a little bit because the question was asked, wanting more info. So Osama and I drove the roadway today. We were up here earlier to meet with Rob and Nadia, Tatiana, the consultant. And when we went through the northern area, I can see sections between Heathercliff and Zuma where the fines are coming up into the pavement. And there's areas north of Bush Drive where I can see that. You get into the area right around Heathercliff, our maintenance guys will scream at us to no end if we delay the pavement work from what I'm seeing out there. And that's just my assessment of having been around this for about 30 years. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And this is the challenge of the trade-offs within the constraints we have on our funding programs, the environmental document process, the environmental efforts. These are normally slated to go as categorical exemption exclusion, which is the lowest level environmental document. we step it up, we get into an initial study, environmental assessment. I'm looking at Carl, thank you. And then we get into an EIR, EIS, and each of those adds cost in terms of studies, and it adds time to get through all of these. So we're working multiple facets. We're trying to also talk with the county, and I'll bring things back to the county about the Zuma Beach underpass and things like that. We're having conversations. It's tricky to put all these components together, and I know we look at it and think it should be simple, but the myriad of funding and environmental studies and other things turn something into being a really complex scheduling web. So I don't want anyone going into this, thinking that we're gonna solve it overnight. I don't want anybody thinking anybody's trying to sucker them. I don't like that when people do that to me, and I don't want to do that with anyone here.
Ryan and team, I'm Kevin Keegan. So I refer to Michelle Shane, my friend, as the godfather of PCH, so you'd be wise to listen to what he's recommending. I have 3 brief comments and 3 questions for you. My comments echo what Michelle, Halen, and Dean were talking about earlier. First, please rebuild and rebrand PCH as a boulevard. I think there's widespread support for that in the community. Number 2, please, when you're working on the feasibility study and finalizing the plans, keep LA 2028 in mind as a major milestone for our community, for our county, for our city. And then third, please prioritize the parking solutions. I just want to also add that I'm a big fan of the gateways. Thank you again for keeping that as part of your overall master plan. My 3 questions. First, you shared with us many tools that you have in the toolbox, the roundabouts, the sidewalks, etc. Do any of the tools allow you, when implemented, to change the speed limits?
The way that could work is that, so speed limits are set when speed surveys are done, and by state law, and we are given a 5-mile-an-hour break on that now, have to set the speed limit within 5 miles of the 85th percentile of prevailing speeds. If, when we put some of these devices in, I think they will slow things down some. If after we put these devices in.
And when you say device, you mean the tools that you discussed?
Yeah, the tools that we're putting in. If they slow things down, we go out and do another speed survey, and the prevailing speeds have come down, then speed limits could come down.
So if you were to install a roundabout, you wouldn't change the speed limit necessarily? You'd wait to find out how the traffic behavior changes? Is that correct?
That's the way it's, yeah.
So in order to reduce the speed, you gotta use engineering to do that. And roundabouts is one of the traffic calming measures, or road diet that we call it, that would eventually reduce the speeds. And by implementing that engineering solution, then when you go and do your speed surveys, you will achieve a reduction of speed. So that's what we're working on.
And do you use technology to study the speed, to do the speed surveys? Sensors, yes, etc.?
Yes, basically we do radar readings, we do do our engineering part in terms of studying the geometrics around a certain segment, and there are a lot of mitigating factors that we consider when determining the speed for a segment of PCH.
Right.
So the answer is yes.
Okay, great. And I was happy to see that you were talking about technologies around the safety adoption system and the vehicle to everything apps as examples.
In the long run, I really think that's going to do more than any of this.
Considering the time frame here, the time horizon, I think you have to keep technology in mind. And
yep.
I would specifically ask, can you include smart city solutions as you're looking at a master plan?
So along those lines, we got a grant that I applied for to create a plan for V2X communications equipment on all District 7 highways.
Excellent.
We're gonna start with the Olympic routes first, but this would quite likely be one of the.
So you're landing exactly where I want to end, which
Yeah.
relates to funding. So have LA 2028, they have a significant amount of infrastructure funding available. Why wouldn't we be part of that funding?
There's a good chance, and I can't promise anything, but
No,
there's a
of
good
course not.
chance that this could become a priority for deployment of that equipment, so that the plan will be a deployment plan
Okay.
of the communications equipment.
So I would just ask,
Yeah, yeah.
submit
And
as
again,
many grant ideas as you can as
Yeah.
it relates to LA 2020. It's in the state's interest, it's in the country's interest
Yeah.
to have this as a functioning highway as well as beautified by the time visitors come in 2020.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there. So I'm really happy to see the slides that you have presented today. It's clear you worked very hard on it. I like seeing that you've actually included the width of the lanes so that we can start to land our heads around what really are your challenges. When it comes to budgeting, I didn't hear about the disaster context and what's going to be happening with where the debris trucks are between the Palisades and Malibu Canyon. If the trucks stay on the PCH, and they've been going through the Civic Center, some of them, that's all going to get repaved and paid for by FEMA, I believe. So when you're looking at where you're deploying your resources, and I know you have to spend it or lose it in June or July here, take a look at that piece and see if you can stretch your budget on other projects and let FEMA pay for that repaving.
It's a good idea, and it's for the more the short term. This is, again, the plan is the longer term, but it's a good thing to consider. I'm guessing
Yes.
you probably already have.
Yeah, keeping
Thank
the
you.
debris trucks off the road. So here's where I really want to get some rubber on the road. I've been volunteering statewide in disasters for 10 years. I'm thinking back to a specific example in the Valley Fire 2015. What happens, and by the way, including your stakeholder list, please include Metro LA, specifically the bus infrastructure and accommodating that. Talk to the drivers. The people that have their feet on the ground can give you a lot of wisdom. And the fire brigade, what have they seen as people are evacuating? Talk to them, okay? So what happened in the Valley Fire in 2015 is there's a community called Hidden Valley, and they lost their power. There was very few routes to get people evacuated, and so it created a clog. What was the tool that was used afterwards? They put in a roundabout. So when you're looking at your canyons, your feeders in and out, that is one place where roundabouts are most needed. And so when I looked at your list of 9, I only saw Topanga Canyon on that, or no, I'm sorry, Decker on that list. So I don't know what the rationalization was for Webb, but you know, we really need to look at Malibu Canyon, Cane and Doom, and Topanga. Also Trancas, and here's why. Because that's got the same problem Hidden Valley does. There's only one way in and out of that community. And you have a bus turnaround problem that's very serious there right now.
Topanga's outside of the city of Malibu, so this is just for the city of Malibu.
Okay?
I think Malibu Canyon and Cane and Doom are challenges because of the space limitations. Again, a multi-lane roundabout takes up a lot of space.
Single.
So, you know, it could be looked at. Trancas, I think, has more potential, especially because we're coming down to one lane there, but I know the city's already working on some other improvements at that intersection.
Well, you do have to be prepared for loss of power and trying to facilitate traffic in a disaster context that has very limited circulation to begin with. So, you know, when you're looking at the speed issues, yeah, you can legislate it or you can design it out. But also the naming of the road matters, and I don't know why Boulevard keeps being tossed around. Just call it Malibu Main Street. It has a bit of a ring. Or State Route 1. Stop calling it a highway. Can we all take a pledge here in this room to stop calling it a highway? That would be a great place to start.
Ma'am,
It's a habit.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to be mindful of everybody's time, because we've still got a queue of people behind you. So if you don't mind wrapping up, if you have feedback or questions, and additionally, where we would really love your feedback is on the feasibility study comment. So if you are able to scan a QR code or find us after the meeting, we can help you get set up with that.
Sure, I promised to do that. I just felt this was high level enough that I needed to share it.
Thank
All of
you.
now.
Thank you.
Hi, Marissa Coughlin. I've been in your workshops and everything else. Thank you for the effort you're putting in. To discuss with you, sir, when I talked to you previously in one of the workshops, and we discussed bicycling and everything, and I said I did mountain biking, highway biking, and I also rode motorcycles, and we discussed the interface of that with the proposed development. My concern has come down, what we call it I think is good too, but we have speeders, and I just told the colonel from the Army Corps that the subcontractors that are hauling off the debris are hauling, but if I'm on, I always put my car on cruise control anyway, whatever the signage is that talks my speed limit, but that they're really hauling over 65 miles an hour, taking debris to the landfills. That you need to call LA County about that and let them know.
Okay,
that.
yeah, so this focuses on the
No,
plan.
I will, but
Yeah.
let me get to my point. And you had said that, you also were a cyclist, and that's how we were communicating. I have a concern about what you're proposing for the bike lanes and the access for emergency response vehicles. We have issues now, and to separate or take lane width away, or have even K-rails. At one of the workshops you mentioned K-rails for bike lanes to separate them, and I asked you how people would get in their garages, and you had indicated at that time to me that they could go around, make like a U-turn and pull in between the K-rail and their...
No, not for K-rails, no.
Okay,
no.
well, whatever you
Yeah.
said, I may be forgetting the actual
Yeah.
implementation, but that is a concern, because we have zoning codes here that require you to have covered parking. If you don't park in your garage, you impact the use of the highway.
Yeah, that's why we're not proposing any protected bike lanes where there's that kind of parking in the residential areas.
Now, as far as the Coastal Commission, Kate Heckelbridge, who's the executive director, she's very insightful about this, better than Peter Douglas used to be, and Jack Ainsworth, who's retired from Ventura, was very insightful about this. I think you should talk to them more. As far as Joe Edmondson's concerned, I would totally ignore him. He's a buffoon. And that is my personal interaction with him, so I have a right to say that. And I just think that we have to really respond in this. This is our main thoroughfare for our town. This is our main road, whatever we call it. But really give thoughts to the emergency response times.
Very good, thank you.
Hello. The budget on this is just amazing. And one thing I didn't hear even with that budget, that speed's gonna come down. And I know you guys keep talking about the 85 percentile and everything else. Reducing speeds would cost practically nothing. And it would make a world of difference on our roadway. Not to mention, all these designs and everything are not really taking in the heart of our town of a rural character. I understand that there needs to be some sidewalks where bus stops are so people can get off and then they can get to their crosswalks and things. And some of the crosswalks are in thoughtful places, but there's others that just don't make sense for what they are. And so I don't understand. All these things are supposed to be traffic calming measures. Drop the speed limit. That's a traffic calming measure, and it doesn't cost $60 or $200 million to do it.
Yeah.
So I
State
just don't
law prevents us
understand.
from doing that.
I know, and one of the other speakers, she spoke about how the fact that all these other modes of transportation, all these other entities are part of what you're trying to address and to make it a multi-mode roadway. But this is still our city, and we still need to have it for our community. I'm not going to other communities and asking them to change their roadways to accommodate my needs. So why aren't the things that put our priorities and then where we can fit in other things? And I'm a big, public transportation proponent. I think we need to be spending more money on shuttle services and getting visitors to use public transportation. And those are all much less costly opportunities. And I don't even hear any of those conversations for that. So I'm really disappointed. And I know you guys have put a lot of time and effort in this, and I appreciate that portion, but I think, as somebody else said, this is kind of old way of thinking and not trying to have modern designs for what's out there. And there's plenty of communities around the world that have.
Do you have some specific examples that you're thinking of, or?
I can't imagine that this type of thought process, it's still kind of keeping the same things, but then we're going to throw some other stuff in, but we're handling it spotting, where we're going to have this crosswalk, we might raise this, we might, have the bike portion in here. Without reducing the speed, it's not really going to solve the problem of safety. That has to be the first foremost thing that is done.
Yeah, and we can't do that per state law.
Right, but we can add bike lanes on a roadway that just simply isn't built to have bike riding on it.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, again, we're hearing from a lot of different people who want different things, and most of the responses we want, people wanted bike lanes, and people wanted pedestrian facilities. So we did try to respond as much as we can to balance everybody's. All right.
So the key to a feasibility study is to make sure that the design basis is sound so we don't get big surprises in details.
Yep.
Fair?
Yes.
So has the design basis been validated? And before you answer, the reason I'm asking is with you focusing on the width of the roads properly, saying certain lanes or certain dimensions, if those are off by as little as 6 inches, those diagrams change completely. The second thing is relative to the general designs and options. Has like the fire department and emergency people reviewed it and approved the feasibility plan as you've outlined in the options?
We haven't sent, we just finished the draft today, but they will definitely be on our list. We have met with them.
Because then the feasibility is flawed. So what you're basically, when will the feasibility plan be closed out such that you say it's ready for detailed design authorization?
The plan itself, we'll probably finish around June-ish. Right around June, the plan will be finalized.
So at that point, it would be good if it were funded to go into implementation. Theoretically.
At that point, projects would be selected from it that would go into the project initiation document phase, which is preliminary engineering. But to your point earlier, I'm confident. We went out and measured every stretch of the highway, curb to curb or pavement edge to pavement edge. So I'm pretty confident that what we proposed is feasible.
So I'll submit comments, but I'm also pretty confident in a couple of those slides that the width that you had on those center dimensions where you were showing trees running down the middle of the road, I don't think that's going to fly. So we don't have to debate it here.
Okay.
But if you're off on that dimension, the whole thing changes. Right? So that's why I'm questioning. Falling into that same line of thought, I'm going to go back to the executive order with the governor, right? So I heard a lot about environmental reviews. That's why these costs are through the roof as well, right? I think everything is right now if you guys get innovative and use your stroke. Because from what I've found, I'm a fire victim here recently. What I found is you folks have more stroke than anybody in this region. So I would ask you to use that power to get a little innovative with your program, because from McClure Tunnel over to the pier, no question, that's in the burn zone. I would ask you to package up your unit, get ready for it, and get creative to ask for authorization and funding. Because coupled with the other gentleman said about LA 2028 and the governor's order, I find it hard to believe you couldn't get support for it. Now, I don't want you to rush ahead with something that's not ready. It needs to meet the demands of all these people and everything people are talking about. But I can't believe you couldn't accelerate this whole program and knock this out to make it what we want it to be instead of waiting decades for it. We've got, what's going on sucks, But we have a rare opportunity where we could really take care of this. And that's what I would ask you to look at.
Very good.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I agree. I think that the time that we have right now is really fortunate. It's unfortunate, but it's also fortunate, right? So it's unprecedented, and maybe instead of 30 years, we can kind of speed it up a little bit. And I also now understand government a little bit better, right? You guys, I don't envy your position. I think that you've done a great job trying to make everybody happy.
Thank you.
You're listening to everybody, and people want bike lanes, they don't want bike lanes. They want medians, they don't want medians. They want, I get it. But the problem is that I find is that we're not gonna make everybody happy all the time. Somebody's gonna always feel like they've lost, but it has to come down to safety. And we know that this is a deadly highway. And the reason I ran was to help make this highway safer. I think we have some things, like I do wish, what Marianne was saying, it seems like a lot of effort being put in so we can get around just making the speed limit lower, because we can't do that because it's a state highway. But it's possible that maybe if we reopen the conversation right now, there'd be a little bit more opportunity, because that's a lot of money that you guys are gonna put in, and in 30 years, which is a long time from now. That's an incredibly long time. I just really know that the parking is an issue. In high traffic tourist places like Paradise Cove, like First Point, and I really stress that even if you took away parking on where the hike is, right? Escondido, we have 2,000 visitors on a given weekend. That's a big number, and we have 12 parking spaces to offer them. So if there's no other alternative, like a shuttle or a parking lot, where do you think that they're gonna park, even if you say no parking on the mountainside? They're gonna park on the beach side, where Paradise Cove people are parking, they're gonna jaywalk across to Winding Way. So it's just creating more dangerous situations. And I, of course, understand that we have other agencies at play here, but it's dangerous. Basically, that's all I wanted to say. I just really want to stress that you won't make everybody happy, but we can't keep having the 4 Pepperdine girls who died. We can't forget them, right? So, and I love the gateways, and I think that there's a great opportunity for roundabouts, but those are 30 years from now, right? 30 years means so many more deaths that can happen. So I appreciate you coming here and your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And safety has been the #1 driver of what we've tried to do, so. All right.
Just to say, again, California, I heard you say 2 things earlier about parking, right? California Coastal Commission and MRCA, right? Within the fire burn zone, Coastal Commission doesn't exist today. They shouldn't be your concern at all, right? Package it up. I think we can make coastal less of an issue for the entire thing. It's represented as one program, right? I'm confused as to why MRCA is an issue. I'm not aware of them having any true authority. So why are we worried about that?
Well, they don't have any true authority, but they're a constituent group that is asking us to keep parking it as much as possible, and
Understood. So the
Yeah.
way I understood your commentary was that you were more accepting of their comments than some others.
Well,
So my challenge to you is just a walk-away statement. Please rethink
Yeah.
that, because I don't think they're any more important than anybody else.
well, and I don't think the plan does that, because like I said, we've removed parking at a lot of places that they've objected to. We took out, what was it, 900 spaces, or I forget how many, it was like 1,300 spaces or something.
Yes.
They didn't like us taking 1 space off. So we went pretty far, I think, in trying to deal with that issue. And
But when it comes to safety, nothing else should matter.
Well, and where we've removed the parking, I really believe, and this includes Winding Way, I think we've made it much safer because people won't be parking on both sides. That'll allow space for people to walk, there'll be bike lanes, and I think those stretches will be significantly safer than they are today.
So to say it a different way, you did a risk assessment that you're comfortable with. It's not that MRCA is involved. You're comfortable with the risk profile.
Let me interject here a little bit. Thank you very much for your comments. My name is Jun Khan. I'm the Assistant Division Chief for the Program Project Management. I want to say one thing. If we could, we would. It seems very unresponsible. I mean, not unresponsible to say that, but the amount of constraints that we have to work under, not just the environmental laws, right-of-way laws, state laws, and the funding issue and schedule issue. If we try, this team has done miracles behind the scene, and we are getting hammered here this evening, and I feel really bad because I understand there's a director's orders going, there's fire damage, we are trying to clean that up. There are Army Corps of Engineers coming in, they're cleaning this up, and we have to repair this road so that all these things will be back in place. And we are working on these two CAPM project, the pavement project, that has a deadline of the money. If we don't do it in time, the money will be gone. So everybody here is working against the timeline to the point where we are trying to incorporate. I'm fighting with Lee every day because he wants to put more. But I'm saying if we do that, that's gonna cause us to lose this money. So we are yelling at each other every day. So you have to understand the effort that we're putting in. These two CAPM has to go, or else it will not happen. And all these requirements, and we have a conflicting interest, as you know, as we mentioned. So we have to incorporate these. I would love to drop the speed limit to 25. If I could, I would. But the thing is, state law clearly states that because this is a state highway, we cannot do that. So I've been kind of saying this in the back, and I know my director is gonna slap me for this. Okay? If you would take this road over as a city road, you can do whatever you want to do. There's no state law that's going to govern it. But I know you can't do that because of the amount of work that you need to do and the cost associated with that. So we are trying our best, and all these emergency work that's happening right now does not give us a freebie. We're still under state law, federal law.
We'll leave it at that for tonight, but thank you so much. Go ahead.
I don't want anybody to feel slighted. I know you guys are working hard. I'm not questioning that. I'm really glad you spoke up and said what you did because you clarified some things we might not have understood, right? What I want you all to understand from my perspective, I don't have the right to speak for all these people. From my perspective, I hear what you're saying, but quite honestly, I take a lot of them as excuses. And I don't mean that in a bad way. What I'm saying is there's an environment where we just need to draw a line in the sand and say, we're not settled. There's gotta be a way. There is a way. And we wanna work with you to achieve that instead of settling for something, right? And I hear you about state law and other things, but we have an environment. If you guys went and hit the governor up yourself, you would get more things than us asking. So I think there's things you can do, and I and others are more than willing to help you do. We appreciate your comment.
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Thank
And
you
I would
so much.
suggest that you work with the city and with Caltrans to try to get funding to come in as fast as possible. At one of the workshops we had here, somebody came up to me afterwards and said, you know, we got people in this city who could just put the money up right away and pay for it. You know, if there's anybody like that, it could happen real soon. So, but, you know, that's the issue, is trying to get the funding to come in as fast as possible.
So if we got it, you could move it up with the other two projects, because we don't want to lose the money and we want everything done. So could you?
To what?
If we found the money, can you accelerate it to do it with the first two projects?
We wouldn't be able to do it with the first two projects, again, for the environmental reasons.
But if
So-
we got the governor to say that it's Palisades Fire, we got rid of CEQA and Coastal Commission.
I don't think we're going to go
Yeah,
into hypotheticals tonight.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna
Thank
do
you.
that.
Do we have one more question?
Last one there.
Thank you.
Just giving this a close here. I want to close by, while we all have a lot of critiques, I know a number of you, I know you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into this. I want to thank you for the amount of work you're putting into this.
Thank
There
you.
is not an easy answer to a lot of these, but thank you for the amount of work that you're doing this. So I just want to start with that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will say, I know that there's a problem on slowing down PCH. We are working on supporting that bill, AB 1014, to give you that legal authority to slow down PCH. So far it's looking good. We will do our best to make sure that gets through. We also do have language that would adjust the priorities of California Coastal Commission to give them more priority for safety, not just coastal access. That is a bill that I would love some help on, not necessarily from Caltrans, but maybe Malibu. It's a bill that we have looked at running and would like to run in the future, which would give you some more flexibility on some of that, some of those safety issues in relation to parking, safety versus
Great. Thanks, Damien. So I think we're gonna talk about the upcoming meetings.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again for everyone coming and engaging with two of our pavement projects as well as the master plan. As a reminder, if you didn't sign in when you walked in the door and sat down, please make sure that you sign in before leaving. We also have more comment cards with QR codes that you can find more information about the master plan as well.
Alex, they wanted to know if the presentation will be posted on the website? Is it on YouTube?
There will be a recording of this meeting that will be posted onto our YouTube page shortly after it ends at some point. And all of the information, I believe, is going, the draft study and everything is already on the website as well for access. Yeah.
We can post it. I'll post it.
Yeah, so we can post the slides on that same website. Again, the QR code is on those comment cards that are right out front. So that will be easy to access. I also want to highlight our upcoming virtual meetings. We're going to be covering the same topics that we have tonight, including the two pavement rehabilitation projects, as well as the draft master plan. And those are going to be on Wednesday, April 16th, starting at 6 p.m. And another virtual meeting is going to be on May 12th, starting at 1 p.m. Again, we want to thank everybody for coming and engaging with all of these projects and for all of your feedback and passion. We really appreciate input from the community, and we thank you for coming to this meeting. So thank you so much. That's going to wrap up our meeting for tonight, and have a great rest of your evening.